What's up, Thrashers, and welcome back once again to the Thrash Maniac 99 YouTube channel, and I am back with yet another album review for you, and this time I am talking about the latest offering from Fossilization, Advent of Wounds. This also came out on Friday the 13th of February, this time on Everlasting Spew Records. This is the band's second studio full-length overall, and my first time checking this band out. And I got curious to check this one out for a couple of reasons. One, Everlasting Spew, I have enjoyed a good amount from that label. And two, I saw that this was described as Death Doom, however, I will argue this is more, in my opinion, just straight up death metal. And also, I saw they were from Brazil, and saw some of the bands that they were being compared to. I'm like, okay, I'm probably in for something really cavernous and murky. And boy, was I correct. So, yeah, this is the first time checking this band out, and, well, kicking things off on this album with Cremation of a Seraph. This one has more or less just straight up death metal. Like, there's blast beats and tremolos up the yin-yang. It's got that, like, cavernous atmosphere. It's very, very vicious. Dare I say there are some nods on this track, and also across the board on this entire album, to bands like Morbid Angel, Incantation, and most especially Immolation. Like, there's quite a lot of that Immolation-esque dissonance going on here. But with this track, there is like a little hint of black metal that shows up on this track, mainly in some of the more higher-end tremolos that kind of give it, dare I say, the higher-end tremolos, it made me think of the song Buried by Time and Dust by Mayhem. This is almost like the death metal equivalent of that track, before it gets into, like, dissonance and a doomy groove. Like, the doom aspects on here, it's there on every track, but it's only for, like, one section. And it's mainly probably in the bridge, where they'll slow it down to a glacial pace. But I would say outside of the bridge, like, everything else about the songwriting, it's just straight up death metal. So I don't know if I could necessarily call this a Death Doom album purely, because I don't feel like there's enough doom going on to warrant calling it Death Doom. So I'm just going to call this one just a straight up death metal album that happens to have doom moments, and as well as occasional blackened elements. Like the second track, Disentombed and Reassembled by the Ages, there are some more blackened death tremolos that show up, but the opening dissonant tremolos definitely give me that Immolation vibe. And the first time blast beats, or not the first time, but continuing on blast beats, I should say the first time you hear Dirk Verburen blast beats, like, this album's pockmarked with Dirk Verburen style blast beats, and if you've heard that blast beat, you'll know what I'm talking about. But of course, there's definitely more chug going on this track, and the melodies that show up here are very, very sinister and evil sounding. And then you move into a track like Scalded by a Sacred Halo, and this one just goes straight for the jugular on gross tremolos and the lumbering groove going on. Like, this one's definitely a more slower song, but it's more of that, like, old school death metal slow, kind of like Bolt Thrower a little bit, but just done at a more cavernous level. Terrestrial Mold. Fucking words and me just do not cooperate today. Cool drum intro into just an onslaught of blasts and tremolo. It's probably one of the more evil sounding songs, which this whole album sounds evil, but this is one of the more evil sounding tracks, and it's just downright vicious and brutal. Of course, some groove coming back, as well as some more Dirk blasts. But then you go into a track like Servo. Starts off with this more, like, dark ambient vibe, before, like, a heavy riff and tremolo going back and forth on top of, like, a marching snare shows up before it just unleashes into blast beats, and there's some more angular riffs. Like, angular riffs start appearing a little bit more on this track, as well as the track While the Light Lasts. just to kind of add some extra element to the album itself. Even like big giant dive bombs, which there are very little leads to speak of. Like Servo's really the only one, but it's more of a big squealy dive bomb like Slayer or early Morbid Angel. And then the track While the Light Lasts, back to those immolation style dissonant riffs and grooves. And hell, even some like diarrhea blast beats, which are rather fun to hear. And then you get to the closer, which is the shortest track of the album at under 4 minutes, Temple of Flies and Moss. This one kind of gets back to a little bit more of a Black and Death vibe. Like, it's kind of reminiscent of Behemoth, I would say, like the early 2000s Behemoth, where it's a lot heavier, it's more vicious sounding, but like the tremolos sit in between black metal and death metal. And there's even some thrash beats that come in on this track before it just descends into just absolute chaos. So, production wise, it's raw, it's murky, it's downright evil sounding, which I appreciate for a cavernous sounding death metal album. As far as any negatives go, this album does rely a little too heavily on tremolo riffs, and you can do other kinds of riffs in an album like this, which they do, but they kind of show up more sparingly. Whereas, because there's so much going on with the tremolo riffs, it can almost make the songs sound indistinct from each other at times. But overall, still the songs were cool. The whole album was nasty and fun. So I'm gonna give this a 4 out of 5. I actually think this is great for the style it's going for. It's a soft 4, I will admit, just because, like I said, there are parts on here where the songs start to kind of blend together. But still, other than that, it's a fun album regardless. I would say if you're a fan of Incantation, Immolation, early Morbid Angel, I would even throw in bands like I'll even throw in like Disma. I'd say check this out. But of course, those are just my opinions, but what did you guys think? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. But until next time, thank you for watching, keep your horns high, and your dreams wet.